have a free will, so you're going up the hill.
At this time, I'll call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. First item then would be consider the approval of the minutes of the meetings that were held on July 25th, the regular meeting, as well as a special meeting that was held on July 31st. The council does have both of those, the minutes for both of those meetings. Are there any corrections?
Move approval. Second.
Craig, seconded by Jim, to approve the minutes as they have been prepared. We will move to a vote.
My vote doesn't come up.
Stephen?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Did you leave me on there, Stephen? I didn't play. Do it to the old guy. Thank you.
We'll close the voting.
Run.
And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 2 is a public hearing. This is one of 2 public hearings that we'll have this evening. This is a public hearing on a new on-sale liquor license for Wings Axe Company. Following the public hearing, we will consider the approval of the on-sale liquor license application for Wings Axe Company. I will call on Stephen Anderson, City Clerk, to conduct this public hearing. Stephen? You can catch your breath for a second here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a public hearing for a new on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Wings Axe Company. They are going to be located at 100 East College Drive, Suite 1, which is the Mercantile Building next to Atlantic Place. Per statute and city ordinance, we can only license one specific location. So that's why we have this suite number attached to it, because right now Atlantic Place is just 100 East College Drive.
Okay. So we'll open it up for public comment as part of the public hearing on the consideration of issuance of this liquor license. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment? Is there any comment or input from the council? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Steve. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now consider the approval of the on-sale liquor license application. Are there any questions about this application? If
Approval.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John to approve the on-sale liquor license application for Wings Axe Company. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 3 is a public hearing for the purchase agreement for the sale of land located at 116 South 10th Street. Following the public hearing, we'll consider the resolution for the purchase with Second Avenue Investments LLC. Lauren, are you handling this, or? I'll call on Lauren Deitz to open this public hearing. Lauren is the Economic Development Authority Director. Lauren?
So we will be holding the public hearing for the land sale of a property adjacent to the former Wilmer Poultry Building. The property owner or the interested developer is looking to just add an additional access point into the property at the former Wilmer Poultry. So he's made an offer of $10,000 for the property. You can open the public hearing for any comment,
Okay.
questions.
Are there questions or input from the audience or members of the council as part of this public hearing? So this is a irregularly shaped piece of,
Yeah, it's a small triangle parcel, about 0.26 acres, I believe it is, unbuildable, but for the purpose of an additional access works for his development.
and it was a remnant from when the railroad went through there and when the street was put in, so.
And there's some easements that run through there that Jason and I have worked through with him that he won't be able to build over, so just for the use of access to the property.
Any other questions or input?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Craig to close the public hearing. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We will now consider the approval of the resolution for the purchase agreement for that property that was the subject of the public hearing with Second Avenue Investment LLC. Questions about the resolution? If not, is there a motion?
So move.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Thank you, Lauren. We'll move then to the consent agenda, and we'll bring the items up on the screen that are on the consent agenda, and they include consider the approval of the data practice policy for the members of the public, consider the approval of raffle permit for the YMCA on November 2nd, 2023, consider the approval of temporary on-sale liquor license for Knights of Columbus, declare an air compressor as surplus equipment for the Marshall Fire Department, consider approval of the temporary on-sale liquor license for SMSU Ag Bowl, consider the approval of temporary on-sale liquor license for the SMSU University Gala, consider the approval of the temporary on-sale liquor license for SMSU Homecoming, consider the approval of a temporary on-sale liquor license for SMSU Gold Rush, and then finally consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any member of the council wants removed for separate discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
By Steve, seconded by Craig to approve all of the items on the consent agenda. Any discussion on that motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 13 is the Aquatic Center contract amendment. The design documents, the construction documents, the bidding and construction administration, as well as staking. I'm going to call on Sharon Hansen to introduce this item, and then we'll have a representative from Stockwell that's here this evening too. So,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this year, Stockwell presented an update to the entire council and the public regarding our aquatic center. And this is another update. We've gotten a little further along in the design process and really reached another threshold for proceeding to the next step. So John Brown, president and owner of Stockwell, is going to present that action item. It is an amendment for the agreement. He will also present some new numbers, and I know that at the earlier session with council, we talked a lot about construction costs, concerns about inflation, what John and David were seeing. However, it was felt by myself, based on the discussion by council, that we wanted to be at or near the $18.3 million construction amount. This was authorized in, obviously in special legislation following their presentation earlier this year. So you'll see that in John's presentation. In order to really get it to that $18 million level, there are some ad alternates that needed to be considered or will need to be considered as part of this project. So some of us have been calling that the gap. That's why we have been stating that potentially we need to have donations, some public fundraising, which to date it's been kind of limited by the fact that people want to see how the public supports or how the vote ends up in November 7th. And obviously, as we proceed through the design. Finally, and I'll end it with this, there is going to be some consideration tonight on timing. We originally have talked about opening final construction near May of 2025, so we can open Memorial Day 2025. However, we have to take into consideration that a decision on whether we can proceed with issuance of bonds for the project will happen on November 7th. So do we consider waiting until election results, not committing city funds for further design until we know that? It may delay some of the construction cycle. And then maybe I'll just add this to the last meeting with staff and Stockwell. We talked about maybe even with us proceeding with the design, as we have been all along prior to November 7th, do we want to consider having construction completion dates, maybe alternate two completion dates for contractors, consider 2025 and 2026, and see what the bids come back with. So I will pause, and I know, Mr. Mayor, you talked to John a little bit ahead of the meeting, so I think he has a lot to share, so.
Very good. Thank you, Sharon, and welcome, John.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sharon and Mayor and City Council. I would like to talk a little bit about where we're at with the cost estimate with the aquatics facility, and wondering if you can't pull up basically this cost estimate first. Is that possible? Do you guys have that? And I wanted to just review that briefly. This is a very brief breakdown of the cost. We've got a much more detailed cost estimate for the project. But this really identifies the overall project cost and budget that we've been working through over the last 2 or 3 months with city staff. And what more importantly, what we had to do is try to zero that in on that $18.3 million project. And in order to do that, we had to take into some consideration some budgetary constraints that resulted in some ad alternates. So I guess if you want to go to this one, which is okay too, if you want to just go to that, that'd be great, the exhibit. And then I can review the ad alternates. And these ad alternates will equate to somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1.5 million worth of work that would be planned to be designed and be bid in the bid documents, but then considered once we've opened bids and see where the bidding environment is, and we could make a decision at that point which items we could or would go forward with.
Stephen, I think it's on page 48, and then the cost estimate's on 49.
So if you look at this detailed cost breakdown, the main items up at the top with all the bid items or all the different items there are what's included in our base price, and that includes the contingency within our project budget. And then at the bottom, if you'd scroll down to the bottom of that page, the ad alternates, which are A1 through A6, and those costs equate to about $1.5 million in ad alternates. And so going back to the graphic, I can show you what each one of those alternates are so that we have a clear understanding of what that is. And the first one was the enclosed body slide. So I'll point to that here, which sure it doesn't show up on there, but it does on this one. If you would turn around, the body slide is an ad alternate one, which is approximately $100,000 ad. So that project, with this project, will include the tower. The tower is included. It would simply be adding a body slide to the project. And so that ad alternate would be in that neighborhood of about $100,000. The next item would be the lily pad water walk. And that's item, sorry about this. But if you look right here, that whole small pool, if you will, and there you go, and the lily pad would be an ad alternate, and that is approximately $325,000. The next item is 3 shade structures positioned throughout the aquatics facility, and those shade structures would be an ad alternate. A pool climbing wall, a smaller one, which is approximately $75,000. I'm sorry. Hang on. Okay, the climbing wall and the Wibbit walk is about $108,000. Sorry about that. Right there. There you go. And then demolition of the existing facility was also an ad option. So basically, initially, we were including that in the base project, but that would be one item that would be easily carved off if you so choose to. And so that's about $225,000 or $230,000 as well. And then the last item would be a precast privacy wall, if you will, adjacent to the highway that would be adjacent, which would be ad alternate number 6 is the blue line that circles the facility. And that would be about an 8 foot wide or 8 foot tall masonry wall that would allow there to be some more privacy within the facility. And that would also be an ad alternate of about $640,000. So with that being said, the project has been refined. The construction documents are to a point of what we call schematic design, or about 30% completion. Those documents have been submitted to the city for their, use from electronic and hard copy. But now the next step is to move forward with the next phase of the design contract. And that next phase of a design contract would include the final design of those documents. It would take those documents into design development, then construction documents, then bidding that project, and then construction administration. As part of that agreement that we have attached here with would be something you'd want to take action on tonight. You wouldn't want to take action on. But tonight, the intent is for you to act on that to move forward with the design. Now, there's some things that you could consider, like Sharon was indicating, that maybe you move forward with the design agreement, but you have us hold off until your November vote to make sure that you move, in a positive direction with a vote. The other option would be to continue moving forward with the design that we had planned on doing. So basically, if this is approved tonight, upon execution of that agreement, we would just move right into final design documents. And that final design documents would then be very close to ready by the end of this year, so that we could go right into the bidding phase in January, February of next year. And that would allow us to have a great bidding environment for the project. That's usually generally a good time to bid projects is, early February, late January. And so that'd be an ideal timeline. Or if you decided to hold off and wait another year, you could certainly then shelf that design until a later date and bid it at a later date. What Sharon and I had talked about a little bit, and the staff over the last couple of weeks, was primarily making sure that we try to keep the momentum moving on the design. But at the same time, we want to be cautious of you moving forward with a design document or design agreement. And then if the vote doesn't pass, you've spent some more money on design. Do you really want to do that? We would suggest that you move forward with that, because it does take a while to get that design documents ready. It's, we're at a 5 to 6 month period that it will take to finalize those design documents. So with that said, I'd like to open it up to any questions that you have with our agreement. Your city engineer has reviewed this as well, in an attempt to compare that to other agreements to see where we're at with comparison to other design professionals in the area. And I think we're in line and very competitive with this fee. And this fee is basically what we've identified here would be a design document to finish the plans, the bidding, the construction administration, so that we'd be here during all times of construction. When I say all time that significant work is being accomplished, we would be here making sure the construction document or the construction is being built the way the plans were identified. We would be providing construction staking as well as-built. And when we talk about as-built on a facility like this, underneath the pavement is, I can't express it enough. There are so many pipes that are installed underground here to get the pipes that go to the different pools and back to the pools so they can be treated are significant. I mean, I would say probably a couple hundred different pipes that will have bends and things like that. And something that we provide more than other firms, we believe, is that detailed as-built drawing. And those as-built drawings are very important as you move forward into the 30 and 40-year period with this new facility so that you can identify where those pipes are in case you have to repair something. It's very easy to do that then, and so that is included in our fees as well. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions.
Okay, thank you. Question?
Yeah, so just so I'm clear on it, if we move forward with the asking for the plans to be developed with our vote tonight, and we aren't successful in November, how much are we actually encumbering for costs?
Yeah. So what if you would, going forward from here, would be about $1.1 million in design fee for our design group that would be preparing the plan documents.
Okay.
And that's identified on your page 1 of our design agreement. If you look at amendment changes phases 4 through 6, 1.1 million, 19. Keep in mind, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Amanda?
Well, I just feel like we're missing something in our document, like I
Oh.
think what you were showing earlier, maybe we don't have in this.
Oh,
Like, based on what you sent us earlier
there it is.
today.
There it is.
Okay.
So amendment change, phase 4 through 6, 1.1. You see that about halfway down.
Thank you.
That'd be what you would have spent if you move forward with the design. And then that design would be something you would shelf. In other words, you'd put the set of plans on the shelf and wait until you have a successful vote.
And then if that was the case, when would bidding occur and when would construction occur?
So
And
if,
completion?
So right now, with our proposed schedule, what we're planning to do is bid this in February. Let's say February for ease of numbers right now. If you chose to hold off, let's say your vote was not successful in November, what we would do is we would finalize the plans to a point where it's easy to pick it back up. And then at that point, what we do is complete those documents and then submit them to you, and we'd hold off until you do go back to a vote if for some reason that vote didn't pass. Did that answer your question?
Really what I was getting at is that if we shelve the design contract until after the vote
Oh,
and then
Yeah.
work on completion of the final plans,
I
then
don't think it'll be, okay, so one thing, Sharon made a good point here, but, and I appreciated her comment. But we do have some inefficiencies in late November and into December, any design firm does, because we have some people that take vacation and whatnot. And so as a result of that, chances are of us getting this back into the queue, getting into the design of this project, we certainly would start in November, but I just don't think we would have as much momentum as we do now. So it's not like we're trading month to month, if we started here, but it certainly would be able to be ready by June or July for a bidding. So it's still a 6-month design window once we really get up and running. So let's say you decide to wait. I mean, you're really waiting until mid-November if you decided to wait on that. So it'd be mid-November when you could give us the go-ahead to move forward. One thing that Sharon, we did talk about is if you want to approve the agreement, you certainly could do that and just say contingent upon us having a passing vote. So then what we would do, in a sense, we wouldn't have to come back to this board for that action. What we would do is then get the agreements executed, simply have documents or, our agreements in place, and then wait for you to give us the authorization to move forward.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Go ahead.
So I'm going to call you on the eve of November 7th or whenever
Yeah.
Stephen gives me the results.
You're going to say, why aren't you working already?
Haven't you been watching this?
And I will be watching it, by the way.
Yeah, so anyway, so we'll let you know November 8th. And I understand, November and December. So we're still looking at June or July bidding. And just give me some perspective on, would they then start some construction in fall of 2024? Because we would bid out in July, award it, whatever, 6 weeks after. I'm just throwing out some
Yep.
dates. But what does that do in terms of contractor availability? And so bidding in July or June, does it add cost to the bidding? Are we better, would we save some money by bidding it out in January or February? We could still do this, I kind of like this alternate construction
Alternate
completion
completion
date.
date, yeah.
But
I
just
think
what's
I
your
think
projections on, might
well,
it cost us money to wait?
well, I believe I'd always tell you that it will cost you money to wait. It usually has. Especially, the thing that we have going for us a little bit here is the design window is now. We have seen some favorable bids recently, which is a very positive thing, because usually this time of year is not a positive time to be bidding some of these projects. And so to us, that's an indication that we're seeing some level off of the construction costs a little bit, because they've been escalating quite a bit over the last 2 years, as you all know. I would suggest, my thoughts are you're going to probably see an inflationary cost of a whole nother year. If we bid this in January or February of 2024, you're going to probably have a contractor that's going to fit that in 24. We certainly can bid an ad alternate where they can have another year to do the construction, but we'd have to be aware of that and realize that there may be some things drug out because of that. We do feel that there's a possibility to do that. I like that. If we wait till June or July, the bidding environment could be all different. And so I don't want to try to say that I can predict the bidding environment, but usually year after year, we're seeing an inflationary cost. The last couple of years have been obviously greater than most, but in the past, it's always been a 2 to 4%, construction inflation factor that we have to consider on these projects.
The other thing is the 1.1 is through the end of December,
Yes.
and you're billing based on costs of services.
What happens? Yeah,
incurred.
what we get done. Yes.
So in 3 months' time, what's billed? Is it 1.1? Do I call you on November 8th and say, stop?
You
And
would
it may
say
be less than 1.1. Likely, it's going to be less than 1.1.
it would be. It would be less. We would certainly want to get it to some level, though, that when we pick up these plans, we don't
guess that
have
does say lump sum.
remnants, I think that's important just so that you don't have a wasted set of plans here. Ultimately, we want to get it to a point where it's easy to pick it back up and start over. And when I say start over, I mean start back in on the design. And you want it as far along as you can in each segment that we do. Usually we do a 30, a 60, and a 90, 95%. And I think we would want to get to a 95% completion and be, sitting there waiting with that. So, or you can wait until, you get a passing vote and then you move forward from there. And then realistically, we're bidding this thing in July or, early August, realistically. So this time next year.
the other consideration is the condition of the existing pool, because as we all know, one of the driving factors here is that our pool is almost, our aquatic center is day to day, and whether or not we can wait till 2026 is a real question. I think, while we do need to have the authorization from the voters, I think we also have an obligation to be ready to go if they say, if they vote in the affirmative, rather than waiting a year, perhaps even longer for, before construction would even begin. Other input from the council?
I understand the ability to be ready to go. Impression, I actually chatted a little bit this morning about this. I just have a hard time as reading this more and more to spend $1.1 million and not know if our voters approve it or not. I don't like to vote for stuff and we don't know how we're going to pay for it.
Right.
We don't know if we can pay for this. Showering the plans sounds great, but if the voters, and I believe it will be approved, but if the voters do not approve it, the plans are no good because now we got to go back and completely revisit this and bring the price down. I mean, we're not going to come back in 2 years to the same aquatic center. So I don't know how good those plans would be.
I don't think you'd be wasting $1.1 million.
I wouldn't say wasting,
You'd have to, look at the plans,
Correct.
and there'd be some updates to the bidding documents as far as dates and things like that. If there's any code adjustments, we'd make those adjustments. You're right, it would be some cost in repackaging that bid package,
Yeah, it's
but it
not
would be
going to
a,
be the same cost.
Yeah,
If you got to wait,
Yeah.
we saw in the legislature the last 2 years that some of the communities that had sales tax approval, they were simply going back to increase the authorized amount.
No, the point I was making is if we have to redo the plans,
Oh.
there's be added
Yeah.
cost on top of those plans.
Yeah.
Of
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
we may have to we may not even be at the same site because we don't know what the
oh,
voters are
yeah.
going to say.
If you
now.
change sites, that's a different
Well, I'm just saying,
animal.
we don't
Yeah.
know the voters wish to spend $1.1 million.
The June, July bidding time slot really concerns me. I just think it's a bad time to bid. And I just
I agree.
worry about costs, but I don't know.
The bidding environment is definitely a better environment in January, February. We all know that because our contractors are wanting to fill up for the summer. And because of our winters, that is very common. As far as, a July bid or August, you're building in the next year's inflationary costs. The contractors don't know what some of those things are going to be, and so they're bidding some of those things into that next year's construction. So, but you're right. I certainly understand your $1 million factor. A 4% increase on this project is probably close to, $500,000 also if you wait another, year.
So the $1 million question, not to play
Yeah,
on words,
correct, right?
is if we went ahead and approved this to move forward and we have the voters not approve this, what falls off the plate? What comes off that, so we pay for this? Is there something that we can say, yeah, it'd been nice to do that in the end of 24, in 24, but we're not going to because we're going to pay for this? Is there something we take off the table?
And I don't think we can answer that question unless we know what the vote is November 7th. I don't think he's even, we got to see what happens November 7th before we even address that question. I believe. I hope we don't have to address the question.
Preston, can I ask a question? How busy has the pool been this year? Comparatively, year to year?
Yeah, we're up on everything this year, attendance, daily attendance, concessions, everything's up. But it's been a hot, dry year.
It's been a hot, dry year.
But we're only, like the mayor said, we're only maybe one breakdown from not having a pool.
Right.
I have a question. At this point, have we had any investment
for the work you've done.
Yes.
So are you asking for an additional 1 million, or
Yes.
is this the total that it'll be
This would be an additional.
additional? Okay.
So you've approved a schematic design. You went through an interview process where we were selected for this project. We started the ball rolling a couple years ago with that, basically doing some public outreach and whatnot. And then we put the project on hold when it kind of lost some traction. And then here about 4 or 5 months ago, you reached out to us to go ahead and finish that schematic design. There were some adjustments to the fee because of new location and things like that. And so there was an adjustment to our agreement. So this would be an amendment to an existing agreement. So you've already spent money on this schematic design, and this would be additional money to go into the final design. Yes.
Other input?
I would be very open to us assigning the agreement with it ready to roll on November 8th, so we know the answer, not till then. That is my opinion, that we sign the agreement. So, or the night of November 7th, Steve, you can say whatever way it went, and we're ready to go November 8th. I'm not comfortable spending $1.1 million at this point.
And I guess I'm thinking about this and trying to decide, and I'm not a big can kicker. I really have a strong belief in this project and in the need. But there again, I'm just here trying to market it to the people that we represent and giving them my strong opinion, but respecting the fact that it's theirs. And I guess I support that same thing. I'm more than ready to sign this agreement, but to give it the green light on the 8th of November.
Correct. And I agree that this is a very good project for the city marshal,
Yep.
but we need to let the voters decide.
Yeah. And I strongly hope that they vote in favor of it, but I just, in good conscience, can't commit us to $1.1 million and not know what that answer is. I just don't think that that's giving them the right respect for their opinion. I wish we could do that vote in August, but we can't.
Mr. Mayor, Council.
Yes.
So I haven't looked at the agreement itself since somebody else in our office has been handling that. But if that's the direction the council wants to go, then I just would want to make sure that the agreement has that contingency in there, that if you're going to sign something that is dependent on approval of something else, that's
So
provided
what
for
I
in
was
the.
thinking is the agreement is approved contingent upon voter approval on November 7th.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the motion.
We can
will
adjust
read.
that agreement.
Yeah, I would like the agreement to reflect
And I
that.
won't sign
Yep.
it, right? We won't sign it until November 8th. So there is no agreement until November 8th because it's contingent upon approval on November 8th, right?
Well, I just was, whenever you signed it, I just wanted to make sure that that contingency was included in the
Right. I think
agreement
you could
itself.
sign the agreement. You would just have a contingency built in. Otherwise, we would be back up here in front of you with a council.
No, I think if we get contingency, it's just
Okay.
good. We just do it. But
And my
we
hope
could do
is
it in
that
the
if you
agreement.
guys are sitting around there with absolutely nothing to
Yeah,
do,
that's-
sharpen your pencil and
that's a-
just do some work and fill it in the file.
Yeah. No, I don't think that. I mean, it would be great if we could do that, but, we don't have that luxury of doing that.
Sure.
so.
Going in that direction, if that's the direction the council chooses, we know that we would not have a pool open until new aquatic center completed until at the earliest, May of 2026, correct?
Correct. Right.
And we also know that we would, at the earliest, be bidding at a time of the year that maybe is not favorable for attracting bidders because it would be in the midst of their busy construction season. And we also know that the bids may be higher because the bidders would need to anticipate what the inflationary increase would be for 2026 construction because they'd be bidding it in 2025 or
They'd bid it in 24,
24
but for a
25
construction of
construction.
25 and actually still working in 26,
Right.
the spring of 26.
Right.
So, yep.
And those are all possibilities, and we may also have concrete come way down because we have slowed down on other constructions. Concrete right now is an all-time high, like it's ridiculously high. And that may also be favorable to us that if we settle into a slight recession, concrete comes back down where it normally should be.
Well, and I'll go back
That
to
in
a
mind.
previous statement is that if there's another place we can find $1.1 million between now and then, talk me into it.
EJ would have to come from reserves at this point because it's unbudgeted.
That's correct. And if you recall, at the end of 22, for our last audit, we were within our fund balance threshold. That is our policy, but we were only within a half month. So this would for sure put us over that. So we would be exceeding our we would not have enough reserves compared to what our current policy is.
And could that then hurt our bond rating for next year?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, I'm in favor of that.
Yeah. I agree with council members Lozinski and Schaefer. I love the idea of a pool. I think it's going to be a wonderful thing. I think it's going to draw not only more people from the city, but from the county, from the area, for the region. It's good for everything. But I can't, in good conscience, vote for paying for something that we don't know is going to go in. Then what do we do with that 1.1?
Yeah, I love the proposal. I'm excited about moving forward with this thing, but I just can't commit to that kind of money without knowing what the voters' wishes are.
I don't have a checkbook big enough to pay for.
So I know I don't. I talked to my bank this morning asking them if I could write a check, and they said you can, but don't give it to them.
It feels, as much as I want this to happen, it feels careless to spend that kind of money not knowing for sure what the answer is. We represent the people and it's their money too.
Yep.
Any other views? If not,
I make a motion that we approve the agreement and make it pending on the vote on November 7th for positive. I move to approve the proposal contingent on a positive vote.
And I will second that.
seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting.
The suspense. Killing me.
The motion does pass. Agenda item number 14, consider the resolution calling for a special election to be held on November 7, 2023. Sharon.
Okay, so we have been working with Kennedy and Graven, and Sophia Leike is, I think, on Zoom, so she can help answer any questions we might have. She helped draft the ballot language and guided us through the resolution that's in the packet. This is a requirement of Minnesota statutes. It does then give notice to the county, our election administrator or official for us, and then obviously, we did give notice to Secretary of State, but it files it with them as well. And then, so I know Stephen wants to talk a little bit too about some follow-up on election, what that looks like, absentee balloting. I know in the packet is the locations, but we can talk a little bit about timing too. Michaela Hewitt is also from Baker Tilly, is available to answer any questions on the language as it's noted. It does include the bond amount and issuance costs and a little bit about timeline. Maybe that wasn't specific in the ballot, but it is in the resolution as well. So I will turn it back to the mayor if there's any questions about the resolution or the ballot.
So we have the proposed ballot language is attached to the resolution. Are there questions about the language? I know there's been quite a bit of back and forth between council and legal counsel and staff on this. Any questions about that? If not, I'd entertain a motion for the resolution calling for the special election with that ballot language.
I have one quick question. So will there be allowed to be absentee voting? Like, how does,
Stephen, go ahead and talk about the the election procedure.
Yes, so absentee voting will begin on Friday, September 22nd, and it'll go until Monday, November 6th. Once the absentee period begins, you can request an absentee ballot online at mnvotes.org. You can also send in a paper application, and you can also do it in person as well. We will be doing voting at all 3 of our traditional ward locations. So if you live in Ward 1, you'll still vote at the Red Baron Arena. If you live in Ward 2, you'll be at the Marshall Middle School in the gym. And Ward 3 will still be at the YMCA. And then the polls, as usual, will open at 7 a.m. and then close at 8 p.m.
Where will the in-person voting be taking place? Is that at the courthouse?
It's still in talks, but I believe it might be either here or at the courthouse. We're still working that out.
Okay,
You're talking in person for absentee?
right.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay. Any other questions?
I move a passage of the Resolution 23061, resolution to the City of Marshall relating to the extension of a sales and use tax and the reissuance of bonds for the purpose of a municipal aquatic center and calling for a special election.
Second that.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 15, the adoption of the ordinance adding Article 2-7 administrative citations. This,
I have
Pam?
this one.
Pam Whitmore, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. In front of you is a recommendation to adopt an ordinance. It's a new ordinance adding on Article 2-7 to the code that creates a process for enforcement of code violations through administrative, with administrative penalties and in an administrative process. So this is something that has, when I first joined the city working with you all, that I heard a lot about the frustrations around being able to work with the residents in code violations and doing that efficiently and effectively for the city. This is an alternative method for what you have in your tool belt right now, which is basically through state statute and the different processes through the housing and building codes. So this is a process that will address that time delay that happens in courts, especially now with COVID, and the cost that goes with that. So even our Attorney General has recognized these types of processes as being good for the public, cost-effective, and expeditious. So this, just to be clear, does not will not be used to do any types of enforcement for traffic violations, alcohol, or tobacco licensing. That's not allowed. So what does this do? It sets up a process. It requires some criteria to be included in the first notice, which is pretty substantial, so that the property owners or people who are allegedly violating the code will have better information. It sets up a collaborative process after that with staff to try to address these. And then if things aren't getting remedied, it allows opportunity for them to be heard about the violation. So it really does enable them as residents to have some say in the process. There's a third-party hearing officer who can get involved if the violation hasn't been addressed and they want to go in front of a third-party individual. That's available. And so those are all going to be more efficient. It can be kept in-house, but yet still have that independent decision maker involved if necessary. And also enables the city to pursue some remedies that aren't just criminal in nature, so that we can do some additional abatement authorities and some assessments to properties if necessary. So it just makes things more efficient for all involved. That ends my summary. I'm open for questions.
Questions? If not, thank you, Pam. Stephen, did you have a question? Okay. So you have the recommendation, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Jim, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Craig for the adoption of the ordinance, adding the administrative citations. Discussion on that motion. If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to Commission Board Liaison reports. Craig?
I have nothing.
Nothing.
I don't have
Amanda?
anything either.
The one thing I would have, this was actually prior to our last meeting, but the quarterly meeting of the Fire Relief Association did meet. At that meeting, this is a time of year that they received their audit, which their audit was a clean audit, and also the schedule of the benefits is reviewed. And the schedule of the benefits includes the calculation of how the fund would be supported and the sources of funds that would be available. First off, the uses would be influenced by the number of retirements, and there has been some fairly large withdrawals because of some recent retirements that the members were able to receive their benefit after serving their career as a firefighter. The sources of revenue then would be the interest that has been generated on the fund, the rate of return on those investments as they're invested in the securities market, as well as then the contribution from the state aid, which is actually a surtax on automobile insurance that comes to the fund. And then the balance is the responsibility of the city. So the fund has performed largely because the market has been very good up until this past year. So the last time that the city was obligated to make a contribution was 2018. For 2025, we will have an obligation, and that's roughly almost $6,000 is what our obligation would be. Prior to that, it has, moved around. It was as high as close to $100,000 at one point. So this will be our responsibility to build into that budget, that roughly $6,000 to support the Fire Relief Association.
That's 2025.
For the 2025 budget year, yes. Regional Development Commission did not meet. I think you had reported on their annual meeting at the last meeting. John? C? Jim? Okay. Then we'll move to individual items. Craig?
Just a couple things. One, to remind everybody, this week, the Lyon County Fair. So, I think that begins tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. I know the Lyon County Beef Producers has their steak feed tomorrow night, so, better go there. That's always a good one. And then Sounds of Summer. So a lot happening, and I hope people can stick around town and enjoy all that. So other than that, see the lights went up on the terrace next to City Hall here. That's pretty awesome. So looking good. Preston, thank you to you and your crew for all the work you do. And one other thing too, I did talk to one of my wife's relatives who is a softball coach that was significant here up at KMS, who's recently retired, that had high praise for the facilities. I guess they played in a tournament here recently, earlier this year, and had real high praise for the facility and for how it was taken care of and managed. So just a word of praise out for that also. That's all I have.
Okay. Steve?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
I don't have anything.
Going back with those forward, but last Tuesday, National Night Out, great turnout at the park. I know that Craig, Bob, John, myself,
Sharon,
well, she's not on council, but Sharon was there. We were in the city booth. It was a good opportunity to visit with a lot of folks that were out, and I think it was just a great time.
Jim, how many freeze pops did you have?
We don't count freeze pop. John would only give me 2 because he's counting the top. He's cutting the tops. So, but we don't count freeze pops. That Jimmy. But it was a good outing at National Night Out. It was a good experience.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Everything.
John? Two things. First off, Craig, thank you for stepping in as President Pro Tem and chairing the last regular council
Hey,
meeting.
thanks for giving me the opportunity, and I'm glad you and Steve did well on your rides.
Right. Well, we made it back, so that's good.
That's important.
The
Yeah, that's even better.
earlier today, it was a open house at the current aquatics center, and Stephen, I think you have a aerial photo that was taken by Alex. So this was taken very early, right after 1 o'clock at the current facility. There was I'll have this number wrong, but Sharon, there was over 700 people that attended. You can see that one of the issues, of course, that we have is, the parking lot was full. There was the traffic patterns with kids, you can see them lined up in front of the door, and then there's cars that are right there. That's where the traffic pattern is, right in front of the front door. So there's lots of congestion. But I guess the point is that it was a great day. There was great participation at the open house at the Aquatic Center today. So thank you, Preston, for keeping everything going there. And I know that the community services staff that were there, they had visitors there that hadn't visited before. So that's always a challenge too, and an extra role for the lifeguards to play. So thank you for a good day. With that, we'll move on then to staff reports. Sharon?
Yeah, I just want to comment, really good feedback at National Night Out, so I appreciate everybody that could help. I know people had conflicting schedules, but I think that went over very well. We're going to participate in the parade, Sounds of Summer, to help promote the Aquatic Center. So if anybody wants to walk, or I suppose we'd be walking, you certainly can contact us and we'll make you part of the parade too. We are going to have a ribbon cutting for the terrace on August 22nd, and that'll be right before City Council, just to kind of formally say that we're complete, and I think it's over 90% now with the lights. We're just waiting for decking on the shade structure, but for the most part, pretty much complete. We are going to do a walkthrough of the Aquatic Center for the community in September. Don't have a final date for that, but the water will be drained. In case there's any remaining question out there from the community about the condition of the current pool, we do want to show them that, and I know we've had some previous tours of the facility kind of looking at that with past council. So we'll make you aware of that. And this past week, we had Community Services Advisory Board, talked about our capital improvement needs in community services, but also I thought there was really good interest and feedback on Aquatic Center, talking about how to promote the information, I should say. And I know that they want to be actively engaged in any events that we have upcoming as well. So I think that's kind of nice that we can get them a little bit more involved. So I feel really good about the public feedback thus far. Although we know there's still some questions out there, and we'll try to keep answering them. This week we've got, I think it's tomorrow, Alex is going to have our CVB director talk about visitors that are going to potentially be drawn to the community from the facility. And we're going to have Mark Claith talk about that Sounds of Summer needs a permanent home, and the Aquatic Center project will be able to do that. But we'll try to continue to get out information. And yeah, I think thus far too, I'll just comment, I know John did a lot of presentation tonight, and there's costs in professional services. There's, costs when you have amateurs doing some of this work. So I just appreciate Stockwell and what they're providing. And I think ultimately we'll save money, not spend money by enlisting their services when we can, when I call them on the eve of November 7th. So I look forward to working with them. So that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. I can give a quick construction project update. The downtown project's going pretty well. RNG Construction should be finishing up on utility work on the current portion of the project between College and Third, probably tomorrow. They'll begin road subcut work then, and shortly thereafter, the concrete contractor will come in on that block. RNG will start on the next 2 blocks on Lion Street and the underground work there, probably as early as next week, right away at the start of the week. I don't believe it'll be at the end of this week yet, so, but that's going well. City Mill and Overlay Project, if you've been paying attention, you've seen some streets getting paved, which has been good. They'll finish that hopefully the end of this week if weather works out for them in other locations. Our water main crossing project of Minnesota 23 is going well. We've got 1 boring complete at Saratoga Street, and that water main's tied together, I believe. The other boring by the water treatment plant over near Travis Road, indefinite start date, but should be going again in the next couple weeks. Legion Field Stormwater Project, the jack and bore of the storm sewer under the railroad tracks is completed. The contractor will come back in the next couple weeks to start digging the pond. Channel Parkway, we can expect a closure on Channel Parkway on Friday, we're hearing now, for that project to begin. We can likely expect Channel Parkway to be closed until mid-September.
Jason, will both sides be closed, or will they?
It is the intent of the project to close the street, yeah, on both sides.
Goes from 19 all the way to 59.
Yeah, and we'll notify MnDOT to take that off of their mapping and truck route as well, so. Chip seal project, I think we're here in 3rd week of August still. And that's about it on construction projects. You've probably noticed the black tubes on the streets. Those are our state aid routes being counted by MnDOT. That happens on a 4-year cycle. Feel free to drive your car over those a bunch. Half of our funding is based on that.
Ask the driving instructors too to make extra laps.
It's a good idea. Yep. Street Department's been doing quite a bit of crack sealing in advance of the chip seal project too, so that's good. Hopefully you've noticed that work. I certainly have. Wastewater department's been busy with the chloride grant. We still have quite a bit of money to get rid of. So if you know of folks who could benefit from replacing the water softener, we do have grants available. We are working with the MPCA right now to try to loosen up the requirements with that grant. We'd like to award grants to homeowners if they replace their softeners too, instead of just having it have to be through a very specific few choice contractors. We want to try to get rid of that money. So we're working on a few different avenues. We have until probably March, April of 2024 to get rid of those funds. And we probably have around $60,000 left. So last item, shout out to Scott Prisbilla on the wastewater team. He did give a presentation at the 24th Annual SALT Symposium recently regarding our chloride reduction program. So I think Scott did a great job, and nice that he was able to represent us there. That's all I've got.
Very good. Pam?
Nothing.
Okay. With that, we have the remaining items on the agenda, including the administrative briefs, the building permits, and the upcoming meetings. Is there anything else to come forward at this meeting this evening? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Amanda.
Second.
Seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We are adjourned.